I started talking and I was unmuted. How's everybody doing tonight? How you doing, John? Welcome
I'm
to our comic book team up number 80. We're on number 80 here, John.
Holy mackerel. And you know, out of all the fish, the mackerel is the holiest of the fish.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the good what's that joke? I think I probably told it here before. So guy gets to heaven. St. Peter meets him at the gate, lets him in. He points to the lake. He says, "This is where we keep the holy mackerel." Points to the field and says, "This is where we keep the holy cows." And he points to the outhouse and says, "And you don't want to know what we keep there."
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
That's about as off colored as I get.
Yeah. Oh, RJ's getting light blue over here. So how's everything? I'm having a rainstorm. If I pop out, we already lost the internet. So
we are so dry here that the grass is brown. We might get some rain tonight.
Really?
The first time in weeks.
I haven't had to water my lawn yet this summer.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's about 96 here during the day. In the nighttime, you get all the heat coming off of the ground. So yeah, it's pretty nice. This is our week of winter. Week of summer.
Oh, okay. It's been a pretty mild summer over here.
Yeah, same.
Last year was unbearable. Just I didn't even want to go outside. Today, this year I feel bad for not. I feel like my poor backyard is getting neglected. I just don't go in the backyard. You know, it's funny. You pay for it, you take care of it, and you never use it. Yes, the beard is coming back. I like the beard. My wife likes the beard. I touched something at work. They were laying down tar, and without thinking, I was like wiping sweat off my face, and I got tar everywhere, and I had to cut it off.
So I was putting up. I have Venture Comics on the thumbnail, which is Aquaman, which I think I have. I don't know if I have that one, but I remember reading those Aquaman when I was a kid. I was thinking about it. I was looking up those covers because I was thinking about this the other day. I was just thinking to myself, because I was watching YouTube videos, which you should never trust what you see on YouTube. But anyways, they're talking about the demographic collapse, where they're saying there's just not enough people going to be left anymore over the next 10 years because all the baby boomers are going to die, that everything is going to shrink, everything's going to decrease. And so, yeah, maybe the 80s and the early 90s were the pinnacle of comic book. I don't know, just the height of comic book fandom and good storytelling and everything else. And that's what I was thinking to myself. If everything is going to decrease, this is why we need to concentrate on what you and I are doing and distill it down to a fine science of trying to figure out how they did what they did.
I agree. I think the 80s was the pinnacle for me. Of course, I'm not blind. I understand I got my biases because that's when I was like in my teen years. You know, the music was the best. The comics were the best. The movies were the best. And I'm sure, like, I noticed that everybody, I'm RJ, you and I are close in age, right? But everybody else, I'm pretty older. I'm older than everybody I talk to. And they're all like, oh, the 90s were the best comics, you know? So I understand that we have this bias towards our youth, you know? So, but put that all aside, the 80s were the best comics. So forget the bias. Can anybody think of another decade? I mean, you could say like the 50s pre-code, like EC and stuff. And I'm not going to argue, but, or maybe like, you know, the 60s early Marvel. But what would you rather read? You know, what do you reread? Oh, look at that cover. I never got any Aquaman as a kid.
I can remember. These were throwaway comics, these Aquaman comics. And they weren't, they were adventure comics is what the title were. But I can remember my brother had like a junk drawer, and we kept our comics pretty good. But in the junk drawer was these Aquaman comics. We would just flip through them every once in a while. But still, This is the version of Aquaman that I remember, not the 90s version with the one hand and the beard, or the 2000s, or the current version that's, Jason Momoa. This is the version of Aquaman that I remember. You got muted for some reason, John. I don't know why. John.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. My StreamYard is acting really, really weird. For me, anyway. Sorry about that. I was going to say that's Jim Aparo artwork. I recognize the face, but somebody put. They were talking about superhero weaknesses on Twitter, and at lunchtime, They talked about like Superman is kryptonite. Batman's a mere mortal, so he can be shot. But what about Wonder Woman? They're like, Wonder Woman has no weakness. So of course, everybody was bringing up the old bondage weaknesses. Like if Wonder Woman was tied up by a man, she would lose her power. And people were like, that's not real. So he showed a page. It was from Teen Titans 53, the original Teen Titans. And it was literally Wonder Woman fighting the Teen Titans, and then Robin putting a lasso around her, and she's helpless. And everybody's giggling, talking about like, I don't know what you know about Marston. I don't want to get into it, but he was kind of into kinky stuff and everything. But anyway, I was looking at the art that they posted, and it just, I hate to say it, like nostalgia is not the best thing in the world, but it just took me nostalgic for this old, beautiful artwork that I just want to dig out. I got these Teen Titans. I want to dig them out and just look through them again. It was just so much fun. And then you posted this. You're just like giving me like painful cravings of longings of yesteryear. I just want to go get like a Big Mac back when Big Macs were big, and a plastic straw in my soda and read some of these old comics again. You know what I mean?
That's funny you should mention that, John. I've been on the road for the last couple of days because just had to take off for a little bit, a bit of an emergency, but we had to eat on the road. And I was thinking, I'm not going to McDonald's. Last time I got a burger there, it was tiny.
Right. Yeah.
We went to, I don't know, Wendy's, I think it was. And at the very least, it got a normal sized burger.
Oh, well, Wendy's burgers are better than McDonald's burgers because Wendy's is at least recognizable meat. The McDonald's, me and my wife are terrible. We eat a lot of fast food, but Wendy's is like a real burger. It's delicious. And now I want. But you've never had White Castle, huh, RJ?
No, I haven't had White Castle.
Well, back Heroic Tales 2, when we get to $100,000, RJ's, I'm flying him down here. We're gonna make up role play. He's gonna be Thomas Valiant in our role playing game, and we're gonna have White Castle, Funyuns, and pizza until everybody's sick. That's
I was going to ask you this question. Okay,
sure.
Talking about playing games. So I posted just as a lark on Monday on Twitter a picture of Sean Connery as James Bond. And someone says, what has that got to do with any of the things that you're tagging it as? But I can remember James Bond having a tabletop version. Do you ever run across?
There was a tabletop game called why can't I think of it now? Give me a second. I'll look it up. But I'm sure there was a James Bond tabletop role-playing game, but there was a spy game that we played a few times. I'll ask Grok. Grok is the best.
I'm going to talk to a man called Plush here. He says the colors are so clean on this Aquaman cover. I don't know, Plush, if you know this, but colors is one of the things that I used to go on and on about on my channel. Just I love the traditional color palette of old 80s, early 90s comics. You are absolutely right. They just pop, and they're meant to pop, and they're supposed to do that with the primary colors. And it's supposed to be because it has a primary male audience for superheroes, and it attracts the eye, for the male eye anyways, for shapes and movement. And it just makes sequential art so much better when you have the right colors just pulling in the same direction as the rest of your art. So I love the fact that you said that, because I'm always on about the exact same thing.
Yeah, the game I was thinking of is Spy Hunt. Is a Top Secret. It was a spy game. There was a short-lived James Bond one, but I don't think it was made by people who licensed books, didn't really know. But there was a really interesting one called Delta Green, and it was spies in a Lovecraft world. So like there was like treaties that you signed with deep ones and everything. That was really interesting. But Spy Hunter, I played. You never played role playing games, huh?
No, but I own a lot of manuals, and the reason why was because they had a competition. It wasn't even a competition. It was a giveaway one time in my local comic shop, and I was buying so much. I got like a long box of stuff that I was buying all my stuff from. So you would put in a ticket every time you'd pay $20. So I put in so many tickets because I was buying everything I could, just because that was my normal every day. And I won this giant prize of stuff from the store, and it included a whole bunch of manuals. I got a manual for, I think, James Bond, another one for Aliens, a couple of other stuff like that. I got a bunch of Batman toys because it was around the time Batman first came out, the movie. I got Aliens #1 comic, and basically I even said to him, hey, listen, I got half a long box in there of comics that my pull list I'm supposed to pull out. I'll trade you half of this stuff back for comics. And he said, yeah, why not? Well, that's why I have so many manuals.
I was thinking that he was just like, this is stuff that he was going to throw away, and he had a contest. You know what I mean?
I got no, because some of it was I got a signed copy of the hardcover of The Dark Knight with who signed it? It was Klaus Janson and Frank Miller signed. There's only 300, I think, or I don't know, it might be 3,000, but there's only a certain number of those hard copies signed by them. And that's one of the things I won.
I had a signed hardcover Dark Knight Returns and a signed Watchmen, that I got from DC. And when I literally got into a fist fight with one of my roommates and just made him leave. I was like, you're leaving now. I couldn't go to sleep because I was like, he's just going to wreck everything. So like, pack up your stuff. You're leaving right now. And unfortunately, he had them in his room. He was reading them. And when he packed up, he took them. And I'm so mad. So mad. He stole my Watchmen book. And I see it like, it's like going for like $1,000 on eBay. She's not.
I always wondered here. Okay, here's my question. If you have Wonder Woman and she has the bracelets in order to stop the bullets from hitting her, are bullets hitting her going to do any good? Why would she bother?
Right. Like they upgraded her to the point where she's a female Superman. She couldn't fly originally. She could glide on air currents. That's why
she also had the invisible jet, but why
she had the invisible jet. Now
was that a creation from Super Friends or not? I don't remember.
Excuse me. No, she had that in the 40s. I think, not originally, but it, within I think 5 or 6 years of her first appearance. But I'm not 100%. But she had the invisible jet because I remember seeing it drawn in that old curly style. That I love the original artwork for Wonder Woman. It's so good. But she wasn't bulletproof. That's why she had the bracelets. Now she's bulletproof. So what good are the bracelets? It's redundant, It's like being bulletproof and then wearing armor. I'm rereading the Iliad right now, and Achilles is invulnerable, and then he wears armor. Like he should be running around in a loincloth. It's redundant.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. What you were saying. There's a guy I watch every once in a while on YouTube, Metatron, and he usually breaks down whether or not a show or things like that, mostly ancient Roman, has any actual historical backing. And there's a new miniseries or something called Spartacus, and he was just ripping it to shreds because of the fact that this is not accurate and that's not. And one of the things he keeps on saying that basically the Conan armbands where you wear them around your wrist made of leather, he said, this is not historically accurate. Peoples, please stop putting those on.
Yeah, Spartacus, the original Spartacus, I watched it, but I actually stopped watching it because the original actor, I just liked him. He was very charming, and he always seemed to have like a smile on his face. But he died. All the actors and actresses were taking human growth hormone, and he developed like a tumor and died. So they kind of discouraged them from doing that. But I think his name was Andy Diggle or something like that. But then they got a new guy, and he was always so dour. But then I just stopped watching it because it just like it became like porn. Like there was always a lot of nudity in it and everything, but it was just like we get it, boobies sell, but it's like a woman taking off her top is one thing, but then like, do we have to see them simulating sex for like 7 minutes? We get it. They're fooling around. So I just stopped watching it. But so I never saw the last season, but I enjoyed it at first, but it got to be too much. But now they're bringing it back with the character that was killed. Asher died, and now it's a female gladiator, and it's totally made up. Like at least they did lip service to ancient Rome. Like there was this character Spartacus. He was in that ludus, and they used the Romans' names, and Spartacus met his end at the correct the Germans at the correct Romans. Now I don't know what they're doing. They're just like, oh, we're gonna bring back a Spartacus show. Like it's almost like fan fiction. So,
well, that's one of the things Metatron was going on about it. He said, yes, there would have been female gladiators, but they would have fought female gladiators. There would have been, it's just basically would have been, the female version of WWE.
Right. Or they just would have been sacrificial lambs, like the Christians, just, but I don't know. I don't see it looking, I don't see it lasting too much longer. Because I don't even think it's the original. It's not any of the original actors except for the guy who plays Asher, and it might be the guy the I forget his name, the doctor, Doctore. I can't remember his name, but the guy who created the show was saying that he knew nothing about ancient Rome. He just wanted to make a show about fighting. So there you go. How can you make a historical period piece and not know anything about that period? That would like me. I don't know anything about Victorian England. I'm gonna make a TV show set in Victorian England. Do a modicum of research. Oh yeah, I'm looking for that Watchmen book in the Internet Archive.
Flush says you could excuse that Diana's bracelets are ceremonial and are used to defend bystanders. I think the new 52 introduced the bracelets controlling her power. I could see it being maybe a magical item. I mean, Thor does the same thing. He's got gauntlets and belt of strength and all that kind of stuff, which most people don't really understand. It's not really part of the comic book except for the Simonson run where he had to power up. So he put on the gauntlets and he made sure he had the belt of strength and all that kind of stuff. But he usually wears those. Similar, something like that should be done with Wonder Woman.
I remember during the John Byrne run of Wonder Woman, he had it so like because she was full on bulletproof at that point, and she would clang her bracelets and basically make like a force wave and knock people down. They always seem to be giving Wonder Woman extra powers. Like at one point she could talk to animals, she could mentally control her lasso, and like so it could like crawl around like independent like a snake. I don't know. I haven't read Wonder Woman in a while.
It's better than the Superman, where I think the craziest Superman power I saw was he could create tiny versions of holographic Supermans from his fingers.
I always, in the Superman movie, when he pulled the S off his chest and threw it at people, it's like, I'm going to do a momentary distraction. I never understood that. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he pulls the cellophane S off his chest and it gets big and like, all it does is they're just confused for a second. Like he should have just threw a punch at him.
People were getting a little bit upset with me for the fact that I called the second Christopher Reeve Superman's passable. They're like, "What are you on?" He's like, "That was a great movie." I'm going, not compared to the first one. It was a good movie compared to the first one, but not great. I'd say.
I liked the second movie better as a kid because it was more satisfying to actually see superheroes fight.
The funny thing is, if you watch the extended version of it, the normal version that was in the theaters, right? When he defeats them, he throws them down into the mist, and it looks like they're dead. But right. In the extended version, you see them being carted away by the police.
Yeah, doesn't he put them in the That's right. They lose their powers and they slide into the ice to their deaths. Yeah, right. You know, but I never thought they died because it was Superman. You know, there was things like as a kid, Superman doesn't kill. He doesn't need to kill. So I guess my mind filled in the gaps. Like, you know, he's going to save them. The Superman movies ranked third, first. Which was the third? The Richard Pryor one? You like that one
The
first?
Richard Pryor one. Yeah, it is. I don't know how you put that first, but it was funny. But when they got to the point, okay, the worst part in that movie would be he's controlling the missiles that he's shooting at Superman, and it's basically a video game on a screen.
Right. Yeah, Richard Pryor was like this computer genius. And then the bad guy was just like, what was it, Robert Vaughn? He was just like discount Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I got to say, the whole supercomputer thing, that was good. And when his sister gets turned into basically a robot, that was really freaky. I like that part.
Yeah,
I saw that I think we watched it at the drive-in. First time I saw that movie.
I love drive-ins. I saw Star Wars and War of the Worlds double feature at a drive-in as a kid, you know, and I think we got a pizza on the way to the and you know, so we were sitting in the car eating pizza. You know, this was the old drive-ins where they had the speakers that you had to put in the on the window. And then later on, I remember it was you tuned in on your radio to listen to it.
I don't know if you can remember. You're always talking about what is your first comic, but the first movie I think I can ever remember seeing was with my parents. They took us to the drive-in and they played the old black and white King Kong and the new King Kong, which was it's got the guy from Tron in it. What's his name?
Yeah, I can picture his face. Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges. It was the Jeff Bridges King Kong because that had just come out, if I remember.
The first movie I ever saw in the movie theater was Jaws. And no. The first movie I ever saw in the movie theater was American Graffiti. Yeah, the forgotten George Lucas phenomenon. You know, that movie, we forget George Lucas had 3 legit phenomenons. You know, Star Wars. Does anybody need me to defend Star Wars wasn't a phenomenon? Indiana Jones, that was a phenomenon. But we forget Indiana Jones, before Star Wars, he made the 50s popular. He created the 50s revival because Happy Days was, you know, it was the same actors. It was basically American Graffiti turned into a TV show. And then we got the Fonz and all this 50 stuff. So that's George Lucas. George Lucas created all that.
I was going to say, if anybody, when you finally get to read Fade to Blue, which is the trailer we saw at the first, for anybody who doesn't know, link for it is in the description for the sign-up page for that, and John's book, which is Heroic Tales, which I talked about on Saturday. Did you notice, John?
Yeah, I heard you mention it. Yeah,
give you a shout out there.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
But the link for that, for his book, you can get right now, is in the description as well. But when you finally get to read Fade to Blue, you'll notice my my love for King Kong in the first. If you know King Kong lore, you'll pick up on probably like 3 or 4 different Easter eggs from King Kong from the first Fade to Blue.
Oh wow, you're a big King Kong fan, huh?
Well, I mean, it was the first movie I ever seen. I can remember watching the black and white. I can't remember the Jeff Bridges one. I think I fell asleep during that one because it was second, right? But I can remember
I've never
as a
seen
kid.
that one. Because I love the first movie so much. Like, even as a kid, I'm like, there's no need to see it. Like, as a kid, I thought remakes were stupid. Remake bad movies. Don't remake good movies. You know,
I don't even remember. I think it was probably in Nashua. We watched that. Yeah, it was. But I wonder if it was a multiplex. They had a multiplex drive-in. So there was like 4 different screens. So.
Ryan Banks makes a good point. He says, the new Superman movie convinced me that Superman is the only hero not proficient at using his powers. Ice breath would have been frozen the nanobots that were going into his lungs. Interesting. I never thought of that. Did he have the ice breath in the movie?
He did have breath. He did. Did he not push some things around with his breath? I think. I'm not sure it was ice breath.
But does it have to be outside of his body? Like, does he just make things cold inside his body? Because that is really cool. I don't know. You're a good point. I don't know what to think about that. I know RJ and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum about the Superman movie. But one of the things that you mentioned me, because you said I was one of the only people that was like, at what point should a superhero just stop saving somebody? And I'm kind of glad you picked that up. A few people, because for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I have a comic book called Heroic Tales, and in Heroic Tales, the Patriarch is saving Regina. Regina Lopez is the female reporter, but Regina Lopez is obsessed with the Patriarch for reasons that I didn't tell yet. She's mentally disturbed, and what she does is she hangs out and she waits for him. Like, she's not stupid. She doesn't just throw herself off the building. She saw that he was coming, and she jumps off the building and screams. And the Patriarch has to go and save her. You know, he's a good guy. And he's telling her, you can't keep doing this. One of these days, I'm not going to be able to save you. Like, but she knows he will always save her if he, you know, he's not just going to shake his head and let her splat, because I don't want to get into it yet. But at what point does Superman or Captain America just like, go ahead, you know, enough's enough. You know what I mean?
You know what the funny thing is, John? I just watched a video. I can't remember who did it, but it's like there's what the heck is it? Anyways, there's a place in the U.S., a city, and I was thinking to myself when I was doing that Superman analogy of he lives in a democratic system and city, and this person who tries to end themselves over and over again just won't get sent to a prison or to a mental institution or to a hospital. I was thinking that's kind of far fetched, but then I literally just watched a video today about the fact that this guy, I can't remember where it is, somewhere in the U.S., one of these cities, he's tried to kidnap children. And this is his 14th time that he's done something outlandish like this, and they won't charge him. They keep on letting him go.
Yeah, this Obama appointed female black judge, and I'm at the point now where it's like we gotta have malpractice. We got to be able to sue judges for bad decisions, because judges are just like little kings. Like the guy got arrested 14 times for abducting children, and you let him go. You have to be held responsible then. You know what I mean? That's the only way to stop this. You know, you are going to face legal consequences if this, because you're the judge. You're the one who has the wisdom to say this guy can. You're the expert. Like, we sue doctors when they make bad decisions. We have to come up with some sort of system to hold judges accountable. Now, I'm not saying like get rid of judges, you know what I mean? Like, because that's a whole other problem, but we need to come up with a way that it's fair. And we could sue the judges. That's the only way I think this will be fixed.
I don't think I got to read Private American by Mike Baron, but that would be a good floppy every month of his character going around the U.S. to different places, just using these regular stories to fight against these people. Like, just take him into the news, for crying out loud, and he could write a good story off of that.
Zach Dan says, there isn't a hard line on it. I expect the Patriarch feels more responsibility for someone in his community and is not mentally well. The Patriarch, I'm trying not to spoil it, but you're going to see in issue Patriarch number 2 is being worked. Patriarch number 1 is being worked on. That's his origin, and then Patriarch number 2 is going to explore why he's on the farm, why his wife is scarred, his relationship with Regina Lopez, and everything like that. The Patriarch has a pretty damn good reason of just letting her fall off a building, you know, and the fact that he doesn't do it just shows you how good he is. Like if Regina Lopez did to you what she did to the Patriarch, granted she didn't mean to do it, but she did it, you wouldn't want to save her. So I'm trying. I want my guy to be a good guy, and he will always choose to save somebody's life, to de-escalate, and to do, you know, the right thing in the capital R, not the right thing in like right wing or like he will always do what he thinks is the best in any particular situation, which rubs him the wrong way with other superheroes who aren't as morally correct as him. But this is my response to The Boys, The Watchmen. Even though I love The Watchmen, I'm getting tired of all these superheroes who have infinite choice. Like Superman should never choose to kill. He can move at the speed of light. He could figure something out. He's got a computer brain. He could figure something out.
Alessandro says his favorite team up is Fantastic Four and Iron Man. Big in Japan. Why would it be big in Japan? I'm not entirely sure. This is an old team up? I don't know.
Is there a comic called Big in Japan? I must have missed it then.
I don't know what he's referring to. Alessandro, put it in the comments.
Yeah,
why is it big in Japan?
I'm 10 years out of Marvel. I can't believe that I stopped collecting Marvel 10 years ago. So there's a lot of comics that I missed.
Tony's trying to drag you into politics.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I didn't want to bring it up unless you brought it up. John, the New York election looks like it's over. What are your thoughts if he wins? He's only the Democratic candidate. We still don't, the Republican candidate. A Republican has won. I'm starting to hope that maybe a bunch of people are gonna, we're not talking about it, but they just be like, I can't vote for this guy. Turns out this guy's a freaking millionaire and he lives in a rent-controlled apartment. Like he's a total fraud. This guy, like how anybody could vote for him is beyond me. Part of me, like the Joker, I want to see it burned out. Part of me wants him to get elected. Like I think every once in a while, like a kid's got to get smacked on the butt, or a kid, or once in a while a father lets the kid touch the hot, oven. You got burned, didn't you, RJ? Well, now you know not to touch the oven again. Maybe every once in a while we got to remind America this is what happens. This is why we don't like socialism. The only bad thing is I live and work in New York. It'll harm me, but this guy's a total fraud. His wife works. I think they make like $420,000 a year. He lives in some rent controlled apartment, and Chicago, the mayor of Chicago just said, we are racing towards insolvency. We have to raise taxes. He says people are leaving Chicago in record numbers that we need to raise taxes. That's like what's happening at the comic book fandom. People are not buying comic books, so they keep raising comics. And then people are like, well, I'm not going to buy any more comics. They get too expensive. So they raise the price of comics. It's just a death spiral. I don't know. I mean, we got it. I'm getting radical in my thoughts, RJ. We have never, once a democracy has problems, we never vote ourselves out of the problems. There's always like a Napoleon that swoops in and takes control. Like, are we at that point where we're going to get a charismatic, like benevolent dictator, to fix everything? I don't know.
I can't remember. I think it was one of the founding fathers who said, democracy works great until the politicians learn that they can bribe the people with their own money.
Yep.
Ryan says, should heroes give cloned humans the same human rights as natural born humans? I would say yes, as long as they got as long as they're actual human beings. The whole idea of that they tried to put out Magnus Robot Fighter, which was, AI and robots have human rights. No, absolutely no for that. But if it's a clone, yeah, that's my.
I mean, if it's a comic book clone where it's like a fully rational, can make its own decisions. I mean, I don't know what clones would be like in real life, but we're talking about comic book worlds. Like comic book worlds, we've already established that these are, individuals with their own agency. So yeah, but I think clone is one of the most overused tropes. I got about 15 issues of all my comics planned out. I just realized there's not one clone in any of them. I just think that's such an overused trope.
It's one of the things that I kind of steer away from. My whole power set for my entire universe is based upon something completely opposite than that, is the fact that no two people can ever have the same two powers. They can never have the same power. See, even if it's son and if it's a son and a father and he passes down powers to him by the virtue of him being his child, it's not the same.
I so far there's no two heroes in my comics that have the same power because there's just been so few, and even the ones that I'm writing are so few. But um, there's overlap. Like a bunch of people could fly. That's the power of flight. You know what I mean? So a couple of people have, like the way I do my comics, it's no secret. I always bring up my villains, vigilantes. I actually write down their powers and their stats and their numbers. So like I have a character sheet for all of my characters. So yes, some of them have heightened agility, some of them have heightened intelligence, some of them have the power of flight. But like overall, when you take all of their powers, nobody has the exact list of powers. From village vigilantes, you know what I mean? Heightened agility, flight, flame powers. So there could be two people with flame powers, but maybe this guy has flame powers and I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now. Water breathing, and this guy has flame powers and stretching. But they'll never. Why would I have two guys with the exact same stats? And I just realized the closest I have to a clone is in one of the issues. There's going to be a bad guy, a bad woman. She's called Triplet, and Triplet is like the Cuckoos, but Triplet is three women who share the same consciousness. So they're all muscular. So like, and they're 3 times stronger, 3 times faster, 3 times more intelligent and then share. So they're just like a one woman wrecking crew. Like she could take out, like a regular squad of people. You know what I mean? Just imagine you're 3 times, but they're not clones. They're just literally triplets that for whatever reason their superpowers manifested that they share a consciousness.
It's interesting because again, I mention this every once in a while, but the reason why we did a Kit Fox book is because Renzo wanted to do it. He just loved the character because he loves Batman. So the Jays, which are my version of the Robins, if you ever got the cards that came along with the book, you find out that even the Jays, which none of them have superpowers except for Cardinal, but that's a different story. The rest of the Jays, they can't actually get to, they're basically vying for who's going to be the new Kit Fox when the other one retires, and none of them can have the same specialty. They all have a different specialty as into what they specialize in as unpowered people. Like one of them is explosives, or another one is acrobatics, and all these different things. You got to have different, even to get into a non-powered competition for a non-powered mantle, they got to have different power, or not power sets, but different abilities.
Would like martial arts be considered? Like I don't know. I figured if you're going to be a superhero sidekick, they would all be black belts plus computer skills. A black belt plus, I don't know, medical doctor. You know what I mean? Is that the case, or is only one of them an actual black belt? That's his specialty.
Well, for most of them, they all have combat training. I think that's all on each one of the cards. But like I said, like Red J is ammunition and explosives. Basically, he's the one who uses all the guns. And then you have like Cardinal. She originally didn't have any powers. She was just acrobatics. She was a gymnast. All these other kinds of things. But like, yeah, combat training would be. That's one of the things. Again, I put on the cards. The combat training. Everybody has combat training, but people have different kinds of combat training.
Okay. One guy's swords, one guy's guns, one guy's. Okay. That I like that. That way you have a basically like Easy Company or like a team of specialists, like in every Ocean's 11, this guy's the safe cracker. This guy's the knows everybody kind of thing. Have Nephish. Is Nephish a biblical, an old Hebrew word for souls?
I don't know. I think.
Yeah, Zach, can you let me know what that word means? I'm kind of fascinated by words. Oh, you know what? I got a really good compliment this week. Somebody said, "I like John's comics. He has the best superhero names." That was the best compliment I ever got because, me, the name is the superhero. And I can't not you, the ambiguous you, if your superhero name makes no sense, like Cable. I can't like Cable.
I just last week hit that point, John, once again, where I really have to, well, Crom it needs to be done. We're working as fast as we can, but I'm trying to get that done, plus Fade to Blue, plus the Artemis story. And we're working on another one with Renzo. But I had an epiphany of a story that I want to write. And I think to myself, this could be like the Western version of what the heck is it called? Oh, for crying out loud.
Charlotte's Web.
No. What's the name of the big manga? What is it called? With the guy with the big sword? Berserk. Yes, I was thinking to myself.
I just said that as a joke because that's the only manga I could think of.
No, I was thinking this could be literally. I was thinking to myself, I could make a Western version of Berserk, but it's not really Berserk. It's completely different with completely different power set and all that stuff. But I was thinking,
RJ, you're making me want to spoil something, but I can't. I got to stick to my principles. But I'm working on a mythological and historical. I'm mixing myths with history, and I'm making up something that's going to borrow from mythology, but it's going to borrow from history. And Renzo's drawing it, and I envisioned it in a different art style. So I asked RJ if he could do it. So we're testing it out. We're going to make a teaser poster, and I asked Oscar. I don't know if anybody ever got the comic Rome Eternal by Magma Comics. I think it got screwed by Diamond collapsing. I think only 3 issues came out, but it's painted. And Oscar, my colorist, who colored this that we're looking at right here of Thomas Valiant and Patriarch, he painted. So I asked him if he could do that kind of coloring style on this. And so he and Renzo had to hash out the details of how to make it work. And Oscar's coloring it right now. And oh my God, this, you're talking, that's going to be your magnum opus. This is going to be my magnum opus. I can't wait. This is going to be, I'm going to be so proud of it. I can't wait. And I'm dying to spoil it, but I can't spoil
exactly it. With me, because most of my stories up until now have been, I wanted to do my version of this story that I just thought of. And I have trying to flesh out in my head is like, this is a completely original story that I don't think anyone has ever done this.
I've seen other people kind of doing, and you'll see why I'm being sheepish about it, because I don't want, I don't know. I just really like it. Everybody I told it to, my friends, they liked it, but it's other people have kind of done it, but I'm trying to do it like I want it to be like the history. I want to have footnotes at the back to back up this really happened at such and such time, such and such place, things like that. So, but what you're saying about writing, if I may pontificate, but last night I sat down to write a story, and I had notes, and I wrote the first. I had a breakthrough. I said I couldn't figure out how to start the story, and I don't know about you, but the first 2 pages are crucial. Like I picture it as like you're standing on that mountain in your skis, and you just got to get that lurch forward, and the rest is the momentum. That's the way it is for me. Like I couldn't figure out how to start, and then I figured out how to start. But man, did this story take a left turn. I don't want to spoil it, but when I wrote the notes, it was a flat out villain superhero, kind of a detective story. Beat 'em up, gruesome, like it's a dark Batman story, and now it's not completely different, but it's this character went through a bad divorce, and now the victim is his ex-wife, or he finds out that the ex-wife is going to be. So it's so different, and I'm really proud of it, and it's just a perfect example. This story it just wrote itself, because this isn't in my notes. Have you ever done anything like that?
No, I don't think I have.
Like this is
I write my stories completely different though. Although I do agree, it has to have the punch at the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, this story is. This is going to sound weird, but I almost feel like somebody else is writing it, because it is not anything like my notes, and I'm just like, this is better. This is better than what I would have written. That Metatron who took over my body just wrote a better story than I was capable of writing.
Yeah, the one I'm thinking about, I never picture myself writing a horror story at all, and this is this is not really a horror story. It's more like well, a sword and sorcery or sword and sandal, but it has horror elements to it. That's why I would say it's kind of like Berserk, but completely different kinds of characters. I never pictured myself writing a story like that at all, but it just came to me. I was sitting in the quiet, and I like you were saying, I had an idea for like 4 panels at the very beginning, like opening, and the whole thing just blew up in my head.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I you gotta have a start. Do you like to start your stories with a action, or do you want to start with like, you know, because my Mary Sue story starts in the middle of the action, in media res, and then it's told through flashbacks. And Mike Barron read it, and he says, I tell stories chronologically from the beginning, middle to the end, beginning, middle to the end. He goes, what you did was pretty different and tough, but you pulled it off. But I'm like, that's the only, like when I thought of that story, that was the only way I thought of it. Like sometimes I'll get a story in my head, and this is going to sound weird, but I don't think about it. It's this, this is the story. This is the story. I'm just writing the way it popped into my head. Mary Sue's story is a flashback. It was never any other way. The patriarch story, that I had to rework because that was my first story, and my first one was really, really bad. But like the origin of the patriarch now, it's in 3 parts. I added the first part because I just wanted to start with action rather than like drama. So but like the way I think of it is just the way the story is, with the exception of the one I started writing last night. It was almost spooky how it's nothing like I thought. And I don't know, I kind of hope more stuff like that, because I'm like, wow, I'm like entertained. Wow, this is cool. This guy is writing a good story. I wonder who's writing. Oh, me, I'm writing it.
It's funny you should say that, okay? Because I'm not the biggest Berserk fan in the world, but one of the things about Berserk that really ticked me off was that it started off with, some really good action, and you got that for basically the first, I don't know, it was the first manga, first episode if you're watching the anime, the old one anyways. And it was just straight up action, fighting demons, all this kind of stuff, weird, freaky things going out. And then for the second one, it skips back to when he was a kid. And I kept waiting for it to jump back to when the action came. And it was just this slow story about him being a kid, and it built up and it built up. And yeah, sure, you got there at the very end, like the very end, you got back to the point where you got to see where the first began. But that ticked me off to no end. It's like, you're going to start with action. Do not, on the 3rd page, go back towards something that's going to be, because it used to be like the old Fantastic Four books. I'm sorry, even the Jack Kirby ones. He would do this front page, which is a splash page, which looked like they were in the middle of action, and then it would just drop way the heck down for the second page. And go, stop doing that. When I was reading them when I was a kid, it's like, if you're going to start with action, don't bring me into this, and then what is it, red herring me. It's like, you put some action in and then make it the end of another story and then start up some other action. I want action to begin with.
Well, you're going to be mad with it because it starts out with action and then it goes back to the follow-up, then back to the action, because it's
that's okay, as long as you don't have like 20-30 books of non-action or an entire book until you get action again, right? Because that's when my Artemis story starts up.
My comic.
No, my Artemis book starts up that way. It's basically a dream sequence, but there's action in the dream sequence, and then he wakes up from a dream sequence, and then it builds up towards more and more action again after the first act. But I mean, that's after the first act. I'm not waiting 3-4 issues, right?
Yeah. You made me think. I was like holding a thought in my head. I didn't want to interrupt it. Now I lost it.
Well, let's see. You think of it, John. Ryan says, John and RJ, could we improve the perception of comics and sell more if comic book creators were healthy, muscular, and looked more like the heroes they write and illustrate? Imagine. I don't know, because there's a lot of good. I mean, there's guys out there, older guys that are pretty healthy. I mean, look at John Romita Jr. He's pretty healthy. But and what else you got? I mean, sure, the guys that work for Marvel right now, they look like a bunch of, I don't know. the guys who run around the circus and one way or another. But I think in the 80s you got a lot of people who were fairly fit and fairly well into trying to keep themselves healthy. That's why that's why you got some of them still around today. But still,
I agree with Ryan in a little bit. Like, not that like go to the gym and work out. Yes, that's good for anybody. That's just good solid advice for humanity in general. But I think the problem with these writers is there a I don't want to use this term, but I'll say hug box instead of what I was originally. But there are a bunch of guys in a circle that complement each other. They actively avoid half the population of the United States. They stay in the cities. These, the original comic book writers went to war. They raised families. They were 22 years old and had kids and a mortgage and a house, and were building a deck in their backyard and working on their cars themselves. Do you think any of these current comic book writers, they don't know how to do anything like that?
no.
They don't know how to use tools. They don't have kids. They don't have any responsibilities other than putting food in their mouth and paying their rent and their 19 roommates. Like, they don't have any life experiences. Like, you need to develop life experiences. Now, part of that is getting in shape. Part of it also is being 19 years old, going to college, not having any money in your pocket, and like counting your pennies, between meals, and like wondering what you're going to do next week, getting resourceful, learning to think on your feet. That's what you need to make good writers. You can't just be a guy who just played video games and then started making comic books. And like, you go outside, you're awkward, you're weird, you don't like people. These guys all brag that they don't like people. How can you be a writer and you don't like people?
This reminds me of a review I did of when they were redoing the X-Men for like one shots about 5 years ago. They were doing old stories, and they were just taking a snapshot of old stories, and then they were doing a one shot of the old stories. So one of them was back. It was a story that was supposed to take place in Mandapore when the first ongoing Wolverine series was out. So it was supposed to be what's her name? The Tiger. What's her name? Anyways, Tiger? when the lady who owned the bar in Mandapore. Anyways.
Oh, yes.
It was during that time, right? And I read when you were in that time, you were waiting for a Wolverine ongoing series forever. So I read those, and I have every last one of them. And then I read this one that came out about 5 years ago, which was supposed to be set in that time period. And I did a review on it on my channel, and I said, here's the problem. The art for that, and it wasn't the writer. It might have been a little bit the writer, but it was more the artist. The art for that book was very competent. It looked good, but the people, the way he drew people, they're all hunched over, and it's not that they didn't look dynamic. It looks like he was drawing his friends, and his friends don't know how to stand up straight. And it's like, that's not the way that these books were drawn by, what was it? It was John Buscema, I think, was drawing them at that time, right? Where he has, these sturdy looking guys, and they're punching each other because they live in Mandapore, and it's basically the whole country is just made up of what, bank robbers and pirates and everything else, right? Yeah. You don't have a whole bunch of guys sitting in a bar in Mandapore who don't know how to stand up straight, who, are slouched over and look like they're beta males. It's like, and I said at that time when I reviewed it, it's because most probably this artist doesn't know anybody like that. Doesn't know anybody who'd stand up straight. He's just drawn his friends, and that's what they look like. It's awful.
That, like, I think we talked about this before, but like, here's a nice reference, but All in the Family came out in 1972, and Archie Bunker was supposed to be the bad guy. Norman Rockwell, whatever his name is, I forget the guy's name who made all these shows, but he was Meathead. He was the liberal, and Archie Bunker was the conservative. And Archie Bunker was supposed to be the bad guy, but they researched it, and they lived among these people. They were regular. These were war veterans. They fought alongside conservatives, so they wrote a conservative character true to life And yes, he said some stupid things, but so did the liberal character. They made him realistic to the point he stole the show, and everybody loved it. Backfired, and the liberals who wrote the show were like horrified, but Archie Bunker was by and far the most popular character on that show, and they like money, so they kept doing it. But the thing is, these people, they didn't like conservatives, they were liberals, but they lived among them, so they had some verisimilitude to their writing. Now Mark Waid, Trump won, so he can't write Superman anymore. That just means to me that it's almost a fluke that you wrote good stuff. If the real world politics can affect you that you can't write a certain way, I don't know, man. Like, did you ever have talent? Like, was it your editors? Like, how did you manage to do this? Norman Lear, thank you. That was I'm clicking on it like I could bring up people's names.
So here, just an aside for you, John, make you feel better about yourself. Maybe. Do you know that when that show started, Archie Bunker was supposed to be 46 years old?
I know. Carol O'Connor was 40, 45, 46 years old when that show came out, and he was a grandpa. Well, I don't know about you. I'm older than the Golden Girls right now. The Golden Girls were 55. Right now, Sophie Vergara is 55 years old, RJ. And right now, if you were single, you would go gaga over her. You know what I mean? But even if you were single, back then, when B. Arthur walked up to you, you wouldn't go gaga over her. I'm being nice with my language, RJ. But I don't know what's going on. 55 years old today. Is it soft living? Is it better food? Is it do we have better health care? I don't know. Like a 45-year-old man in 1960, that guy's seen a lot. Like, are we in the soft times that produce weak men? So I don't know.
I don't know, John, but here's the thing. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just telling you because no one's ever seen me here, but yeah,
it's true. I don't know what RJ looks like, ladies and gentlemen. I've never, and I don't want to know.
I'm only 5 years younger than you, but I'm probably in the best shape of my life, and good. Probably in better shape than most 20-year-olds right now.
Yeah, I've been trying to lose weight, working at it. I'm like admiring my shoulders right now. I'm trying to do something.
Tony asked, do you think that the characters like Alan Scott, John Kent, Bobby Drake can ever be rescued, or are they ruined forever? Now, without a full reboot, in my opinion.
RJ's harsher than me. I have a DC is screwed because DC just reboots every 5 years. So just reboot it. They set the precedent, and it doesn't matter what you do. they're just going to reboot it anyway. So just reboot it. Sorry, but that's what DC does. But Marvel doesn't reboot. I don't want to reboot Marvel. That would just drive me crazy. I have an out. I think I told it on this channel a few times, a way to just fix Marvel. Like I know Old Dirty Fatty and Tony Grigo and probably Zach Tan all know this story a million times, but like Misery, we saw that movie Misery. Remember, Kathy Bates, she takes James Caan and she breaks his legs and she puts him in the bed and says, "You got to write a sequel to Misery." So he just starts writing a story. And she goes, "No, Misery was dead. She was, maybe she wasn't obviously dead, but she was buried." She goes, "I read that. You have to acknowledge that, and you have to go from there. It happened." We could get away with saying she wasn't really dead because, we never really saw the core, but we have to acknowledge that she was put in a coffin and put in the ground. And James Caan is just like this crazy person. And then he writes and he's like, "This is the best book I've ever written." So that's what to me, that's the way I'm crazy person, Kathy Bates. We have to acknowledge what was done to Bobby Drake and to the X-Men. And work with it. I mean, we there's a universe of Galactuses and cosmic cubes. We could come up with something. And do you mind if I spend 5 minutes explaining how to fix Marvel?
No, go right ahead. As long as you don't mind staying up a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, I get to sleep an extra hour, so I'm not rushed enough. But anyway, in the 70s, there was a story in Captain America where Jack Kirby came back to Captain America, one of his first stories was called The Mad Bombs. And the first Mad Bomb drove everybody crazy in a city. So Steve Rogers, I almost said Steve Martin. Yeah, Steve Martin, who's a lesser known, he took his banjo. But Steve Rogers, as Captain America, deactivated the Mad Bomb. And the second Mad Bomb was big enough to take out like the East Coast. And then the third Mad Bomb was big enough to take out like the entire United States. And what it did, it drove everybody crazy. So Captain America does that. He's a good guy, whatever, problem solved, move on to the next story. Now, the way I would work it is everything has to be acknowledged. Otherwise, I think it's disrespectful when they disregard Ditko. It's disrespectful when they disregard, Steve Englehart, and it's disrespectful when you disregard Mags Visaggio. Like it or not, that person added a Lego to the sculpture. So the problem is editors shouldn't let bad people write this stuff, but it's there. We have to acknowledge it. So somebody says to Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, "You're changing again." And she's like, "What?" And she looks mannish. Like, we have to acknowledge that she was drawn mannish. And then we have to acknowledge that she looks female. Like, that's not just stylized choices. I would say that something is happening. And Reed Richards starts to study her. Like, what's going on? And it's revealed that she has 2 sets of DNA. Her origin was literally Mar-Vell jumped in front of the Omniwave bomb to protect Carol Danvers, and Carol Danvers got his DNA, as disgusting as that sounds. So she literally has male Kree DNA interwoven with her DNA, and that's how she got her powers. So I would make it so that the DNA is fighting for supremacy. Sometimes she's more male-ish, sometimes she's more female-ish. And Reed Richards is like, this isn't going to end well. This is like weird cancer. So what he does is he extracts all the male DNA and basically has a clone of Mar-Vell. Now she's beautiful, sexy, flirtatious, old, Carol Danvers. She's like, oh, wow, I haven't felt like this in years. And now they have Captain Marvel, but he doesn't have all the memories. He's literally like an infant, but he's got the intelligence, the awareness, everything. So he's a fast study. And then finally she's flying around with Captain Marvel and she's telling him about his exploits and everything. And then he says, does everybody have those waves going through their body? And he's like, what waves? He goes, oh, the waves. They're emanating from this mountain range. She's like, what are you talking about? Because he has cosmic awareness. He's the only one who would be able to pick this up. So they fly and they find the next Mad Bomb. And this Mad Bomb is the subtle one. It's been vibrating. It went active a couple of years ago. And everybody on the Earth is changed. So they turn off the Mad Bomb, and all of a sudden Bobby Drake goes, I've been gay for like 5 years. What's going on? And the X-Men is like, are we mutant supremacists? Like, everybody starts to acknowledge all of this weird behaviors. And now the X-Men are like, we have to make up for all of the bad things that we've done. Bobby Drake's like, what's, ew, and Wolverine is like, doesn't want to look at Scott Summers anymore. Like, and they all just like, all the superheroes go on like a charm offensive, and they got to repair all their reputation. Like Spider-Man is just like, did I like give up my marriage to Mary Jane? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're all starting to realize all of these horrible things that happened, and now they're going to try to rectify it because they were driven insane by like this Hydra Mad Bomb. And as a bonus, we get a Captain Marvel back. So there you go. What do you think of that? We have to. I know you would just rather reboot it, but I can't stand reboots.
Well, I always told you what my reboot would be. It would be just give me 2 minutes. My reboot, from everybody who's heard it before, is the fact that Mephisto basically took over the planet with Mephisto versus that series that came out late 80s, I think it was. And basically from that point onwards, it was Franklin Richards took the original actual timeline and suspended it in its own universe. And then the rest of the universe that continued on from that point onwards was a Mephisto driven. So basically a devil driven version of what should actually be. And then the rebooting of the entire thing would simply be the fact that Franklin Richards has been stuck in the hell dimension of Mephisto, most probably with the daughter of Peter Parker, who is also growing up in that sort of limbo, kind of like Magic, and the two of them fight to actually defeat Mephisto and then reinstitute the timeline from the pocket universe that Franklin created and gives up his life.
I like that because it's just not like a reboot. You know what I mean? It's already established that Franklin has this kind of power and everything like that. So yeah, but I like the fact that now the superheroes are just like, man, we've been acting weird and we need to restore our reputation. We got to make restitution. And Spider-Man's like, what was I doing hanging out with the Avengers? I'm a solo here. I don't hang out with the Avengers. And the Punisher was just, Punisher's wife was just like, I'm sorry, I've always loved you. You know what I mean? Like everything could be this mad bomb. It messed with us. And you have like the Mad Thinker and Hydra just like, we almost got away with it. And kind of like a meta commentary on the way America and Europe has been behaving in the past 10 years too. It's kind of insane.
All right, there you go. John and I just rebooted Marvel twice. There, everybody, somebody go run with that, will you?
Yeah, two idiots over here just came up with the solution to a comic book. It's not that hard, ladies and gentlemen. Get some people who actually like the medium, know the medium, want to see the medium succeed. That's all you need. Like Richard C. Meyer turned out to be one of the biggest disappointments ever. But he wasn't wrong when he said like a lot of these Marvel writers are just using it as a cool thing to put on their resume. Like if back 10, 15 years ago, if I got to write for Marvel and DC, that would have been the end point. That would have been, the throne that you sit on and like I've made it. This is the best. Now I'm writing Fantastic Four. What else is it? Now I don't even want to do it. Unless, they give me carte blanche to reboot it.
Well, I'm going to leave it there. We've gone over an hour. It's an hour and 10 minutes. And thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, John, for explaining to us what we need to do to recoup our losses with Marvel. And like I said, yeah. Like I said, link is in the description for the two trailers that we had at the first of this live stream. One is for the sign-up page for Fade to Blue, my book. The other is for the, I just put in the Fund My Comic link for John's book, which you can get right now. It's available, Heroic Tales #2. I think you can get Heroic Tales #1 at the same time. Can you, John?
Yeah. You can, if you like Fund My Comic better, it's still available on Fund My Comic. You can get issue 1. And you could get issue 2. If it's also available on Kickstarter. What doesn't matter to me which one you get. Here's another spoiler. My hoodies showed up, so I got my King Fu hoodies showed up. This is going to be for my next campaign. But here you go, everybody. Check this out. They just came today. So on the front, it's going to say, it's hard to do this backwards. The Memphis King Fighting Society, and then on the back, look at that, machine washable. It's the same company that made my t-shirts. I got all the sizes. This is a large, so there's no way this is going to fit me, but I'm going to start showing these off now. So these are on the campaign. So if you don't get this King Fu, this is awesome. Now there's no way in hell I'll be able to fold this back up and get it back in the package. So somebody's going to get a large that's going to be improperly folded. I apologize. But I'll keep it out so I can show it to people.
All right. So links are in the description, everyone. And thank you very much for everybody who's showing up tonight or will show up later on this week. And we will see you all next week. First on John's channel for Comic Book Team Up, and then back here for a Make Comics Fun Again. All right. I'll see y'all later.
Bye-bye.